Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the Barkeep, bringing you podcast 40 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. Well, guys, it has finally happened. I have watched every single episode of Go Buster. So I finished the final episode a couple of nights ago, and I just saw the Go Buster versus Go Buster movie, the Go Kaiser versus Go Buster movie as well. I've watched all the stuff. There are a couple things I couldn't get my hands on, such as some of the DVD specials. But needless to say, I've seen the entire series. I thought about it for a while, and I'm going to go ahead and give you guys, just my overall thoughts of what I thought of Go Busters, how good was the series, what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it. And I'm just going to kind of, ramble on as I usually do. I will make this kind of warning before I go ahead and start, since I do have the 15-minute limit on YouTube at the moment. I'm not going to be just sitting here counting down the minutes and going to another video. So I'm just going to record this as one long audio file, and then I will split it up into segments. So I apologize for that, but it's just going to be easier for me this way. That way I don't have to keep timing myself and losing my thoughts and things like that. So I hope you guys can understand, and we'll go from there. One of these days this limit will be lifted, and we will no longer have these multi-parters. So in any case, let's go ahead and talk about the series as a whole. The first thing I want to go ahead and address is, I think overall I did like it. It was very different from a lot of the Sentai series, and I knew that going in. Going into it, I was told it was very different in its aesthetic look, the way the plot had moved around, the way it works in its characters. It was less goofy, a lot more serious-minded. It took itself more serious. Things were a little bit more realistic. Those were the things that I kind of knew going into the series. And a lot of people didn't like this show because of those factors, because of the fact that it was too dark, it was too serious, it wasn't as lighthearted and stuff. And I'll address those issues here in a moment, but first hearing about that from people saying that it's too dark and that's why I don't like it, that made me want to watch it all the more, because I was really interested in a darker, more serious type of Sentai. Because, the way the Sentai world works, there is room for the Adam West version, and there's room for the Christopher Nolan version, if you get my meaning. There's room for all those, but we need to see more of the more serious toned ones, even though the comedy series are a bit more popular. I think we as Americans do like the darker version than we like the comedic as opposed to the Japanese audience, because it does seem the Japanese audience responds well to the more comedic series than they typically do the more serious-minded ones. That's just a general thought on my part. I could be wrong on that, but I do tend to see, like, Car Ranger was very popular, Go Onger was very popular, Q Ryuger is really popular right now. And again, what these series have in common, they're all comedic, more lighthearted in tone than, your Go Buster, your Shinkanger, O Ranger to an extent, which, again, I know almost ended the franchise, basically. But I was really looking forward to a darker type series, something that was a little bit more serious. And for the most part, I think it delivered. So, for those of you who haven't seen it, there are going to be some spoilers ahead. I do apologize for that. But definitely go watch it. I know it's 50 episodes and a couple of movies and all that, but it's worth it. And I want to make sure that everybody here, I don't spoil anything for everybody, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. And not to mention, I will say, I didn't watch it all in a row, and I'm not going to remember certain things because of my memory, so I apologize for that in advance as well. But basically, the story is pretty straightforward, pretty simple, actually, when you think about it. The three Go Busters, they're being recruited to fight against a computer virus that's going to go ahead and take over the world if not kept in check, and these three kids have to go ahead and stop them, basically, because they are the prodigies of those who basically created him. Now, the first thing off the bat, and I know it's a very simplistic analysis of it, but when I first saw this is like Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad. No joke, because Messiah and Enter remind me of Kilo Khan and Malcolm Frank. It was like just deja vu in a way. It was almost the same kind of thing. A computer virus is manipulating somebody in the real world to go ahead and do these things to free him or make him conquer, take over, and all that. And I'm like, did Super Sentai just rip off a Power Rangers ripoff, which in Power Rangers is technically a ripoff of Sentai? My mind just kind of was blown at that concept. Um, but yeah, it's a lot more in depth than I had just previously stated. I mean, obviously, what's going on here is that the computer virus wants to go ahead and take over the world, not in like Vengeance, in RPM and all that. Wants to reformat the world to an environment that's suitable for him. In order to do that, he needs to get the Intron, which is their new alternative fuel source that everything kind of works on and all that. So that's kind of like the basic premise and all that. And the reason that the Rangers are chosen is that you have the people who created them, basically, their whole research facility was teleported into the subdivision where he lives. They were able to save their children, but at the risk of basically transforming their bodies, allowing them to be not so much computer hybrids, but have the flaws of computers, such as overheating and so forth, affected viruses, visual imagery, but also have enhanced skills, such as the Red Ranger can have super speed, Yellow Ranger can jump really high, and the Blue Ranger has super strength, which is a pretty cool setup. It is kind of that, it's my destiny to do this kind of thing. It's really kind of played up with the Red Ranger at the beginning. It's like, I want to be here. This is for my parents' legacy. Because, when their parents disappear, in the backstory that we learn that they've been orphaned basically because of this, and they've been taken in by the energy center, and I forget its name at the moment, and basically two of them are raised with the energy center, become agents, and basically just being trained to fight this guy should he ever come back, basically. So let's go ahead and talk about the characters a little bit. First of all, the Red Ranger, and I'm gonna botch these names. I just know it, but Hiromu. I'm just gonna call him the Red Buster. So Red Buster is your typical Red Ranger protagonist. He is the rookie Red Ranger of the season 2 because the other two Rangers had been training a little bit longer and all that. And the Red Ranger, he's cocky, he's young. But he's also very determined and driven. Not unlike Cole, I would say, because here's the thing. He's wanting to avenge his parents, but he also wants to find his parents because he's under the belief that they are still alive out there somewhere for him to find. And I like that about him. I think it's good to give him a goal, a tangible goal, basically. And to find your parents, is definitely a goal. I mean, this is something they didn't necessarily give the other two Rangers. I mean, yeah, their families were affected as well, but the Yellow Ranger, she doesn't. Let me get to the Yellow Ranger here in a minute. But basically, the whole thing about the Red Ranger is that's his drive throughout the series. That's why he does what he does. That's why he's a little bit reckless at times, because it seems to me that he had been stricken so much by grief. That it's led him to do these things. And I like that. I think that's very interesting for the Red Ranger. He's really a static character throughout the series because he's not really the jerk. He doesn't have anything to learn. He doesn't have anything to grow, really, other than to let go. And that's something that they all have to learn later on, and I'll get to that point. But that's all he really has to go ahead and learn is learn how to let go. Which is a very powerful lesson, I think, and a very powerful episode. And again, I'll do ahead and talk about that. But, he's really just a standard, generic fare. Nothing really too special about him, but also nothing really offensive. Nothing that really bothers me about him. He was a good choice. I think he was okay. And, let's move on to Ryuji, the Blue Ranger. This guy was also kind of generic as well. He is the older one because Yellow Ranger's youngest, Blue Ranger's oldest. I think he's supposed to be 28, 29, around that age, almost 30. So he is the more serious minded. He is the more responsible of the characters. I do like that. That it's not always the leader who's minded. It's not so much like he pulls the Red Ranger back, but he is the common sense. He is kind of the oh, I don't know. I mean, something of the Spock of the group in a way. I guess I would say. What I really like about his character is he has the same resolve as the Red Ranger, but if I recall correctly, I don't think any of his family was directly affected. Like he didn't lose his parents like the Red Yellow Ranger did, but he did lose somebody. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I apologize for that. Um, but what I like is okay. So his big thing is he has a super strength, but when he gets overheated, he goes on a rampage. He loses complete control of his emotions and his inhibitions, and just rampages like crazy. It's almost like akin to the Hulk, basically. And it's really awesome. I love the scenes where he does go berserk. There is an episode in the latter half of the series where he and the Yellow Ranger were having an argument with one another, and then he just kind of like lost it in battle and was attacking her, and she had to try to bring him out of it. And that's the thing, you can't bring him out of it. That's his thing. He's like, once he goes on rampage, he has to cool down. He has to be cold somehow in order to be himself again. You can't talk with him. You can't reason with him. And I like that because what they're trying to do with like, and again, using that Hulk analogy, is like try to get to his heart, to get to the person. You can't do that with this character. And I like that because there is going to be that point of no return a lot of times. Things aren't going to turn out as nicely as you think and all that. And um, that's what I like about the series because it does make that statement. I think is that things aren't always going to be as nice as you would hope they would be. Not everything's going to turn out perfectly, um, and that's rather consistent throughout the series. And I like this about this character is like it's not going to turn out perfectly. You are going to have to do this. You can't reason with him. So but yeah, he's kind of generic as well, and that's the thing I will say about these Rangers is that for the most part, there you could almost interchange them with other personalities. I mean, what they did in Kyoryuger's, I think they made a better attempt to give the Rangers distinct personalities, and that may have been a direct result from this. And even the season before Go Buster, the characters are a little bit more distinct. I would say in the case of the Red and Blue Ranger, they are a little bit more stock than the other characters in the show. Which isn't to say anything is wrong with them. It's just that when you think you have when you have three characters, three main rangers to begin with, you would think you would develop more of the characters and their personalities. We learn a lot about their backstory and people who are involved with them, such as the Red Ranger's sister or the Blue Ranger's friend who goes into engineering. We learn about their resolve through their friends and family members, but I just can't think of an instance where we really learned about them and where they made significant changes in their character. That's why it just kind of bothers me in that regard. But for what we got, I mean, the characters were good. They were moral. They did the right thing, and you know they're making choices out there, and they are making the good choices. I think.